A reminder to everyone out there in Michigan and elsewhere, Ohio State can still recruit and recruit nationally. All right, we got a reminder of that this week. Welcome to the Voice of College Football and our Buckeye show that we do live here each and every week. You got to keep track of those notifications to know when we go live, typically Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday's our landing spot most of the time, but here we are Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We've got Kevin Noon right next to me. Buckeye Huddle. Also, keep in mind, he's got his podcast released periodically, the Big Me Kickoff Podcast. Kevin, what's the latest on that edition?
Yeah, actually, I thought we were going to do this show on Wednesday. So I'm like, I'm going to do a show on Tuesday. And then I get up and I see I look through my schedule. I'm like, no, we're doing this show. So maybe I will do a show Wednesday after we get back from Ohio State availability.
Excellent. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports. As always, Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I don't know. As Kevin said, we had a scrimmage on Saturday that we got to go, and we'll have some availability tomorrow with another position group or two, and that'll be it. We will have gone through basically the entire roster of guys who are going to play in 2023 and all the position coaches, and then we'll get Coach Day on Monday. And no more chances to watch any practice before the spring game on Saturday, April the 15th. Good tickets still available for those who want to attend. And based on the turnout for the Student Appreciation Day, which was probably the lowest that they've ever had for that event in the 8-9 years that they've done it. Urban started it probably in 2012 or 2013. I'm kind of up in the air on how many people are going to show up on April 15th for the spring game, but maybe they'll surprise me and have their usual 50, 60,000 people. Who knows? But I don't know. It was kind of sparse. I made a joke. Am I allowed to tell this on Ohio State Buckeyes Live?
Go to it.
I said, these students, we found out one thing about them. They don't back a loser. So there you go. Uh-oh. Whoa, where'd I go?
Hey, now.
Where'd I go? Hey, now.
There goes the chat.
0-2 in their last two games. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a 2-game losing streak.
Losing streak for the boys.
45-6, Ryan Day, 2 consecutive losses. Look out.
I'm just kidding. Sure. I'm just kidding, everybody. Although the students really didn't show up. So, whatever. Okay.
Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. You guys know the deal. You ultimately produce the show. Super chats are welcome as well. Consider Kevin, Steve. They both have, and typically Tony's here as well. They are grinding all the time, and they have their regular jobs and assignments, and they devote at least an hour here each and every week in addition to what they do to just communicate and schedule and do everything else that needs to be done to make this happen each and every week. So please consider that. Well, the Buckeyes got to commit this week, and he is a big one for a number of reasons, I believe. Top 5 running back in the country, James Peoples out of San Antonio. And in addition to that, it sends a message. Of course, you want to get talented football players, but in addition to that, to kind of stave back this Michigan momentum and all this talk about Michigan taking over the Buckeye State and taking over recruiting in the Big Ten and everything else. So, Kevin, tell us about James Peoples.
Yeah, James Peoples out of San Antonio, Texas, Veterans Memorial High School. In that 5'10", 5'11" range, $190. Plays 5A ball, which is the second highest classification in the state of Texas. Even though we don't necessarily consider San Antonio to be one of the football meccas in the state, I mean, they still play good ball out there. Peoples has definitely proven that he is among the best, as he is a top 5 back according to several services. Somebody who is not, he's not your big 6'2" upright type of runner. He's got a little bit more of a lower center of gravity, hard to get down to the ground. I think people are going to be like, yeah, but is he fast? Oh, he's fast enough. He's going to run away from defenders. I mean, I think that some of that advantage will go away here at the next level when he gets to college, but a tremendous back that has some decent hands for a little bit of pass catching, whether it's out of the flat or on a wheel route. Just a really, really good back, and it's really going to help Ohio State fans get over the sting of losing Jordan Marshall to Michigan and look for this to be a 2-back class.
Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything Kevin said. I think elite speed, game breaking, maybe kind of in a Curtis Samuel type mold. Maybe not as explosive as a Travion Henderson, perhaps when Henderson is completely healthy. But I think you got to like Peoples a lot. He fits this offense. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is something that they want to do. And obviously, a lot of the highlights I've seen are basically the read option or the run pass option that Ohio State loves to run. And he really flourishes in that role where you're taking that late handoff or whatever it might be, and you've got to pick and choose how the play is developed. He's got great vision and great shiftiness, and I think he fits to a T exactly what they're looking for in this offense. So Tony Alford, the rumors of his demise have been greatly exaggerated, and he's got him. And I know that we've talked openly on the show about this player, Williams Dixon at Pickerington North, as well as a potential running back in this class as well, the kid from Millersburg that moved to Pick North. So, if they get those two guys in this class, that would be a great way to restock, because they probably do figure to lose Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams after the upcoming season. So, to me, I think that's a plus that they're adding those two guys.
If marketing is everything these days, and then this next prospect, he's got a step on all of us at this point, because this is a given name. It's a given middle name from what I understand. And we have discussed him on other shows, and I really underestimated Ohio State's factor in his recruitment. But that's one Air Noland out of Georgia, who, according to everybody I've talked to, is a phenomenal prospect. And we don't know much right now, but Kevin, what are your thoughts, and what do you gather in terms of Ohio State's prospects?
Yeah, this left-hander comes out of the state of Georgia, Langston Hughes High School outside of Atlanta, Fairburn, Georgia. Came up to Ohio State for a visit, first of the month, and it's kind of a make or break moment at that point, because Aaron Noland says he's going to announce on the 8th of April. Coming into the trip, he doesn't have an Ohio State offer. It seemed like it was going to be a little bit of a formality. This kid's 73% completion rate, just big arm, is able to really do it all. I am really confused by a lot of national people trying to not have Ohio State in the mix there, because I think Ohio State leads for him, to be quite honest. And Aaron Noland left Columbus to head to Tuscaloosa. Let's remember that Alabama already has a quarterback commit in Julian Sayin. Now, of course, the thing would be Ohio State would take either of these two quarterbacks, but I think all the momentum is there right now with Aaron Noland. And, it's one thing to land the commitment on April 8th, but then you're going to have to play defense the rest of the way, because I don't think other programs are suddenly going to stop recruiting this kid just because he commits to Ohio State, if that's what ends up happening. But I like Ohio State's chances there as the guy that has been identified as Ohio State looks to have its quarterback in 24.
Yeah, I agree with everything again that Kevin said. I think obviously Ohio State seeing Michigan land Jaden Davis, who did give Ohio State at least a cursory look. I think this means a lot if they're able. Davis is ranked just slightly ahead of where Aaron Noland is rated. His other schools, Arkansas, Clemson, Miami, Oregon, and Texas A&M. I'm not sure. And again, I haven't investigated Georgia. I presume they must have a hotshot 2024 quarterback commit, or one for 2023 or something, that for some reason they have a good one for 24. They have a
24, and they're very much involved in the Dylan Raiola sweepstakes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that may explain me. Every time something like this comes up, people are like, well, why didn't his home school want him? What makes him so great? And that explains it, obviously, if that's the case. But I think Ohio State should be right there among that group of schools. We were at the scrimmage on Saturday, and he was in kind of a red sweatsuit or a athletic suit, jumpsuit. I don't know, however you describe it. And he was standing there behind the offense on almost all the scrimmage plays. practically in the huddle, listening to the play call and watching Ryan Day, Corey Dennis, Brian Hartline coach the quarterbacks, coach the offense, call the offense, talking to the quarterbacks as they made their throws. I mean, he was like right down there, like he was, involved in the situation. I don't, he's not talking to people after every rep or anything like that. But I mean, he's like right down there where he could observe within 10 yards of everything that was going on. This is what your experience at Ohio State will look like if you're one of these quarterbacks. You will be in this situation. This is what we're going to call. This is how you're going to execute it. And this is how we're going to coach you after you try and execute it. And I think he got an up close and personal observation of what it's like at Ohio State. This is how Heisman Trophy candidates are made. And so, I think that can only go so far, go a long way to helping a kid pick a school, is to see exactly what his experience is going to be like. And he was right down there, in the middle of it, and seemed to be just so attentive to what was going on. He looked like he was on the team. He had a stern look on his face and was, following everything that was going on. So taking mental notes on everything that was happening. So I think, to me, that can only help Ohio State's cause when he sees to what degree and what level, first of all, what kind of offense they're running, how sophisticated it is, how similar to the NFL it is in some regards, and certainly how hard he's being coached to be the quarterback in that offense. So I think all that works in Ohio State's favor.
So I'm going to guess a few things here, and I'm going to lead us in a direction since you dropped the phrase Heisman Trophy candidates. So we've got Dylan Raiola, who had committed to Ohio State, and he's looking at Georgia, Nebraska, and USC. So I'm going to liken his recruitment to Air Noland in this way. Nebraska for Dylan Raiola means legacy, bloodlines, and attachment there. He has a member of his family currently on the coaching staff coaching the offensive line. But to compare what Matt Rule has done, who has a great coaching track record, but no real record in terms of developing NFL quarterbacks at Temple or Baylor, versus what Lincoln Riley has done, we don't have to go through the litany of Heisman Trophy candidates and winners that he has coached. Much in this way, Jaden Davis just commits to Michigan. Now, I'm guessing that he was a bit cool on Ohio State because they were all about Raiola and had that commitment, and they got into the situation late. But when you compare Jim Harbaugh at Michigan and his development or lack thereof of quarterbacks and nobody playing in the NFL versus what Ryan Day has done at Ohio State, I got to think that any quarterback, and their aim is to go to the NFL, we're talking about this level of player, that Ohio State should have a huge advantage over most of these other schools.
Yeah, it should. And I think that Ohio State does really have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose quarterbacks. But the way that this 24 class set up, Ohio State really led for both Davis and Raiola initially. And Raiola committed before Davis had an opportunity. I mean, certainly Davis could have tried to jump in earlier, and that kind of ended that. I mean, there was a cursory, let's see if we can reconcile. Nope, we can't. So, it wasn't necessarily there, but for the time that Ohio State was locked in with Raiola, you see Julian Sayin commit to Georgia, you see the Ryan Pulgiski go to UGA, you see all these other top quarterbacks land at other programs. And for as solid as Ohio State is in terms of its quarterback production, coming up here at the end of the month, another first-round quarterback, potentially number one overall in the entire NFL draft. Once you kind of lock in with the program, it's not always going to be that easy to just sit there and say, well, let me go start over all my relationships somewhere else. So the Dylan Raiola commitment and subsequent decommitment kind of put things a little sideways for Ohio State. But I think that all things considered, if they land Air Noland, they're going to be in fantastic shape. Again, with Davis, again, I think it was just a matter that Ohio State these kids are all very competitive. Ohio State went in a different direction. It's like, all right, well, you go in a different direction, I'm going to go in a different direction. I don't think there really was going to be any way to mend those fences.
Talking Buckeyes with all of you each and every week, typically on Wednesday. Here we are on Tuesday. That's a good reason to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. We got Steve Hellwagon here, Bucknuts 247 Sports, and of course, Kevin Noon from Buckeye Huddle. Catch his podcast, Big Me Podcast, as well. All right. You guys let us know what your first impressions of this football team was at this point last week. After the weekend scrimmage, and you got another look, Steve, at the Buckeyes in action.
Yeah, we got to go this past weekend on Saturday to the Student Appreciation Day practice, and we got to watch about a half hour of position drills and a little bit of red zone that was going on there, 11 on 11, I think, in the red zone. I think it was 11 on 11. May have been 7 on 7. I think it was 7 on 7 in the red zone. And then they let the students in for the last hour, which was primarily a scrimmage. There was some 7 on 7 during that, but also probably 60 or 70 plays of 11 on 11 in various scenarios. One where they were coming off the goal line from their own 1 yard line. It was first down and 10 at the 1 yard line, like it was a punt that was downed. And now, you've got to be precise in that situation. And in fact, there was a safety in there where there was a holding penalty in the end zone. Probably out of those 70 plays, at 10 or 11 of them were quarterback sacks, which is not a very good ratio. In a given game, if you give up more than 2 or 3 sacks, a game of 60 or 70 plays, then you've really failed. And to give up 3 times that many is real failure. That is total failure almost, I think, on the part of the offensive line. So they got a lot of work to do. I think that's what we came away from that route with. I think one of the things that you have to remember is that Zen Michalski, who was probably the leader at right tackle, he did not play due to some type of an injury. Ryan Day said that he was hoping that Michalski will be back before the end of the spring. Tegratash Bola, basically a redshirt freshman, filled in for him at right tackle. Josh Fryer was at left tackle. They were getting beat up the middle. To me, one of the most refreshing things that came out of this scrimmage was the play of the defensive tackles. Tyleek Williams, Mike Hall, Ty Hamilton, even Jaden McKenzie all made plays coming up the middle. And I think that that's going to bear some fruit for this team in the fall, because they really haven't had impact play at defensive tackle going back 3-4 years. Haskell Garrett for part of 1 year, and otherwise not much. So to me, that was very important to see. Kenyatta Jackson continued his reign of terror at defensive end. I had him with 3 sacks in the scrimmage. The offense did make some plays. Carnell Tate, the freshman, early enrolling wide receiver from Chicago and IMG Academy, he had 4 or 5 really nice catches for big plays. He caught a back shoulder throw along the sideline from Kyle McCord that was a perfect pass by McCord, put it where only he could get it in front of Davison. And I got to say this properly because I'm catching all kinds of hell all over the internet for not being able to pronounce this. Davison Igbinosun. I got to say it right. What's that?
Igbinosun, I think.
Igbinosun. Okay.
I've been working on it. I had to, like, the way I had to learn Tuimoloau, I've been working on it off air.
They're giving me hell about this. I'm going to say it. They're giving me shit about this. And I'm not the greatest on pronunciations. I readily admit that. Igbinosun. I've been saying Igbinosun, and people have been correcting me, and like I'm not saying it right. So the phonetic.
Just to interrupt real quickly, Steve, for anybody that's going to listen to this, and that's going to be about 2,000 people at some point that are going to listen to this. Yes, it is important to pronounce people's names correctly, but some names, Smith, Baker, are much more easily pronounced than others, and it takes some time for some of us. I will include myself. It's not so much that I can't pronounce it, but I forget how to pronounce it if I haven't said it for a week. And people have a little grace. Just these guys are professionals to the hilt.
We're trying.
Yes, they are. That doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about. The furthest from the truth.
I'm just going to call him number 20 or Davison from now on. You all can lump it. So there you go. But at any rate, great catch by Carnell Tate along the sideline. And he made a couple other big plays in the scrimmage as well. So his name came out of it with a lot of buzz. But those were a lot of the talking points, I thought. I don't see a clear leader. I think McCord, 60-40 maybe right now, if you had to put a percentage on it. I think he's got that kind of lead or better over Brown. But that honestly is a subplot. They both can play. And the problem is if you don't protect them, neither of them can do what you put them in there to do. So they're going to get back to work on it. No reason to stop working on pass blocking at Ohio State right now.
Yeah, just to echo some things there, as I've been watching fights going on in the chat, which for whatever reason has been good people watching. I agree when it comes to where the quarterbacks are right now. I think that for both of the scrimmages that we've been able to go and watch, and it, more or less in their entirety, I think McCord's been a little bit ahead, but I wouldn't say that it is a dramatic difference at this point. 60-40 sounds about right, so I'd have to kind of agree there. Steve did bring up the fact that Ohio State's offensive line was down a man with no Zin Mahalski out there. I had the chance to go over to the one side of the field and watch just OL, DL one-on-one drills. And I've watched those a lot of times at camps. And because you're not in pads at camps, there's no bull rushing. Well, when you're in full pads, there's bull rushing. And it's just a drill that is not built well for offensive line. And the defensive line really kind of had its way with the offensive line. I'm not ready to start, playing the alarm klaxons or anything like that at this point, that the offensive line is in some sort of deep trouble. But, it's a good thing Ohio State is not boarding buses today and heading to Bloomington to play tomorrow. They're going to need some time between now and the start of the season. So credit to the defensive line. I think that some of it was the defensive line just making plays more so than the offensive line just being a turnstile out there. It was nice to see some of the running backs break some big plays. We saw a nice Hayden run that they kind of just blew dead. Instead of running the length of the field, we saw a Chip Trainum run that went about 70 yards. That was nice. Some things that were going on there. And to echo Steve, Carnell Tate, wow, I think he is going to demand playing time this year. And that's with having a receiving core of Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Jaden Ballard, all of the 22 guys that are a year ahead of him, and a talented class that he's part of. Carnell Tate has already proven, and this is not a slight on either of the Rogers, Noah or Brandon or Brandon Ennis, who's not enrolled yet, but Carnell Tate has already kind of taken the clubhouse lead right now as the potential breakout star.
Interesting. All right, folks, we have asked for questions and you guys have delivered. Okay. Let's also keep in mind that these guys show up and they also deliver on the spot in regards to, they don't know what I'm going to ask them. They don't know what you are going to ask them. And they always deliver an insightful answer. So we're going to put them to the test once again. There's all sorts of questions, comments, and players' names that are being brought up in the chat. So are you guys pretty much ready to go rapid fire? And whoever wants to take these on certainly can jump in,
Sure.
Whether it's one or both of you.
Sure.
All right. So let's get to the first one here. So we can always broaden these out to be a little bit more insightful. Mecca's just asking about who's on the board in regards to the defensive side of the ball for 24.
It's going to be Reggie Powers out of Centerville. I'm a little surprised that one hasn't happened quite yet, but all systems seem go there. He's listed as a safety. Is he somebody who could slide down to linebacker? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I know that Reggie Powers picked up his offer just within the last week plus, and that's the one he's been waiting for, and that's who I think will probably be the next guy on the defensive side of the ball.
I agree. I asked our friend Bill Kurlick about who he thinks some of the next commitments were going to be, and he mentioned Williams Dixon, that running back at Pick North. He mentioned Reggie Powers at Centerville, and he also mentioned a big-time wideout as well, who's like a national top 30 player who the Buckeyes have really, as if they need another wide receiver. You probably know the name. I could look it up.
Mylan Graham out of Indiana.
Yeah, Mylan Graham from New Haven. Is it New Haven, Indiana, I think? He likes his chances of being in this class as well, and thought it could happen sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's going to happen today or tomorrow, but to me, that was a good sign. Although, as we said, you can recruit all the 5 top wide receivers in the country, but if you don't continue to get top 100, top 50 players on defense and top 100 offensive linemen, you ain't going nowhere. So they got to round this thing out a little. They got to diversify a little bit.
The Rod Farva, how many offensive linemen do they want to take in this class?
At least 5, probably 6. And they have 4 in the fold already, with the Armstrong twins, with Mark Nave Jr. out of Toledo, and with Ian Moore out of the state of Indiana. I think that undoubtedly they take one more for sure. And whether or not they take the 6th, I think it just matters if it's the right guy or not. I think we're going to see some attrition coming out of the spring on offensive line. And they're just having to really kind of reshape the room a little bit. But as of now, for a class that, let's just argue and say that the class is going to get to 25, which, remains up for debate whether or not they will or they won't. 6 of them, I think, will be offensive linemen.
I'll just add in, they have the 4, and I think, as Kevin says, 5 or possibly 6, and I think that they are taking into account that there's going to be some attrition there. They've got some dead wood that they're not even trying to put in the 2 deep right now. So I think they're trying to send a message that a couple of these guys need to be blown out of there and restock. That's what they got to do.
Well, we've got a pretty good crowd here in the middle of the show in regards to people's attention. One programming note, everyone. So we are no longer editing these live streams into repurposed segments. So we are no longer going to do that. Didn't do that with last week's show, but you will see a timestamp listing of all the topics and at one point that you can catch them. So this is the destination in regards to this one Buckeyes show delivered to you each and every week. You get the timestamps to jump to whatever topic that you would like to see. All right. We got Bricky asking, can someone please explain Jim Knowles' philosophy of not having to make the tackle, just be in the right place at the right time? I feel this philosophy and the lack of tackling in practice hurt us.
Well, I'll start off on that one since Kevin's batted lead off on like the last 5 because I've been trying to put out fires elsewhere. From what I saw on Saturday, they are working quite a bit on tackling. They have various 2 or 3 different segments devoted strictly to tackling in the course of a 2-hour practice. And there's only so much of that you can do without people turning up getting injured. So they are trying to accentuate that and get as many reps for the people who need to work on that, who would be the open field tacklers, which would be your linebackers, your safeties, and your corners primarily, because your defensive ends and your defensive tackles are more in quote close quarters. I think that that work can only pay dividends. They are definitely trying to work on it. They're even, they go so far. The previous Saturday was what they call a winner-loser day, where most of the drills and a lot of the scrimmages are graded on a point system, and it's 1 point for the offense or 1 point for the defense. The safety that I alluded to earlier was worth 3 points on that one single play for the defense in terms of the overall unit, offense versus defense, for the entire day. And there's some kind of ramification, I presume, for the loser. They have to run an extra 10 up downs or whatever. I don't know. Or maybe the winner gets some kind of special perk. They get an extra cinnamon roll or a better parking spot for the week. I don't know. I don't know what the ramifications are, but they vary. Or maybe it's just you walk around for the week and you're a loser, and you got to deal with that for the next week till they do another winner loser day. So, there are stakes involved in everything that they're doing. They're trying to make everything competitive, and they are working really hard on shoring up bad tackling. I can tell you that. And I didn't get the sense that there was a lot of bad tackling in the course of the scrimmage or even in that drill. I think there were a couple guys who stood out that, need to continue to work on their form. Obviously, the early enrolling freshmen getting in there, giving up 20 pounds or whatever when they first show up to whoever's running the ball against them or whatever, they're going to struggle a little bit in that drill because there's not as much lead in their pencil as there needs to be. So, but they're learning proper technique. And I think that's what this is all about. This is a fundamental time of the year. And Kevin, that's what I saw, is that they are making a concerted effort to improve that.
Right. And, to kind of stay on that side of the question, and I'll try and address the other side. There is a fine line. We're seeing tackling in practice becoming more and more rare on a national level because you're getting guys injured and, concerns about extra hits and things like that. The body can only take so much, but Ohio State certainly does have its tackling drills that it runs. This is a lot less tackling these days than maybe we saw during the John Cooper era, which, I was certainly here for. And you just have to make sure that you have the right fundamentals in place for the tackling. Now, as for Jim Knowles' philosophy of not having to make the tackle, just be in the right place at the right time, if you're in the right position, you're going to be there to impede the play. You're going to be able to do something unless you completely just whiff. And a lot of times when we see missed tackles, most of them, not all of them, are, some arm tackle or, your momentum has carried you kind of out of your spot and you're trying to get back to it and you're not centered up to bring the guy down. So I don't know as much about the Knowles philosophy there. I've not really had a chance because there have been more pressing issues in terms of what everybody wants to know about the Jim Knowles-led defense than maybe just this tackling issue at that point, be it cover zero during situations where you probably shouldn't be running cover zero, leaving safeties out there completely in bad positions, things along those lines. But, that'll be something that I will try and dig into a little bit more, Bricky, to find out some of the genesis of that philosophy.
Coy Beasley is I'm finding it interesting to see the discrepancy in ratings here. A top 50 safety according to 247 Sports, a top 20 safety according to the composite. Anyway, top 15 player in the state of Ohio out of Cincinnati. Do we think Ohio State offers Coy Beasley?
I'm waiting to see if Ohio State offers Terion Nichols out of the state of Ohio. There are some safeties within the state that are pretty solid. Again, this is a difference from this year, maybe compared to 5 years ago, where the state was a little bit thin. I don't know. I don't know if we see a move on Coy Beasley at this point. I still kind of think that Terion Nichols may be the guy. Doesn't have that offer yet, to my knowledge. You can't take them all. I'm going to guarantee that Coy Beasley is going to end up being a guy who's going to come back and bite Ohio State in the butt some way, because it's just how it works generally. But at this point, Mika, I'm not sure if Beasley gets an offer. I think it just kind of depends on where they are in their safety recruiting. Do we get into camp season? Is this a big see you in camp type of situation? I don't know.
Beasley, I know nothing about him. Robinson, I know, is a great specimen from up in the Youngstown area. He's got some Division I high major offers. Former quarterback, and from what I was told from people up in that area, he really has never played a full season or been healthy enough to play a full season on defense. So there's limited tape out there on him. He goes to these camps and combines and tests out of the roof or out of the sky, but maybe more of an offer collector than a football player at this point. And I think Larry Johnson, if he had him in camp and he liked him, he offers him. We saw last year in June, he was bringing in guys from Cincinnati public schools, a couple of them, and offered at least one kid from a Cincinnati city school who you'd sit there and you'd say, caliber of competition, academic profile potentially, is this going to be a fit? And yet when he worked with him directly, he liked what he saw so much that he's like, yeah, I'm offering this kid today. Well, here's Brian Robinson. Does he come to Ohio State's camp? I don't know. He may have the year before. I don't recall seeing him at the camp last year. And, has he been healthy enough to show over the test of time that I think he's at Fitch? Does that sound right, Kevin?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. You asked you.
Yeah. You know as much about Robinson as I know about Beasley.
Oh, so I know. I just don't know where he goes to school.
Yeah, I think it's Fitch. I think it is. And so good school, good football school, et cetera, et cetera. But what's the disconnect? Why hasn't he been offered when Michigan and all these other people have offered him? I don't know. I can't speak for Larry Johnson, but if he had him in camp and liked what he saw, he'd have an offer. I can tell you that.
Talk about big picture here. Mello's going for what percentage do you think we have in beating the team up north this upcoming season?
50, 55. Got better players, but the problem is, are you going to play your best game on that given Saturday in November? That's the big question. They obviously have not. The last 2 years had better players on the whole and did not. Now, Blake Corum is an outlier. He is maybe the best player on the field when they play this year in Michigan. And, Marvin Harrison will be right there with him. Those will be the two single best players on that field. And who has the better day? It's 11 on 11, and then it's 11 on 11 on the other side. So, 25 people determine the outcome of that game, and on each side, and who's 25 is going to outplay the 25 on the other. Ohio State has this much of an advantage in talent, but if Michigan, plays above its head and Ohio State doesn't play quite like it's supposed to, then this is what happens. And it's what we've seen the last 2 years. So, you tell me who's going to show up and play their A game on that one given day. Both teams are going to come into that game theoretically 10-1 or 11-0. If both of them could beat Penn State, they would probably both get there 11-0. You want to talk about the showdown of all showdowns. And we saw this past year, in a perfect storm, you didn't have to win that game to get to the playoff anyway. Now, you never want to rely on that, but certainly got to win that game to get to Indianapolis, you would think. So there's going to be a lot riding on it. You're going up there with a rookie quarterback, although he'll have 11 games under his belt by that time, theoretically, if it's the same guy who starts the season and is still a starter at the end of the season. So I would say 50 to 55% chance for Ohio State and 45 to 50% chance for Michigan. I just think Ohio State's got the slightest of edges in talent, but it's at Michigan, and Michigan now has the belief. They have the belief. All 85 guys on that roster have the belief that they are going to beat Ohio State because it's been proven and they've done it. There is doubt in the minds of the 85 at Ohio State. Can we beat that team? We talk a lot of crap throughout the 12 months out of the year of brotherhood this and doing it for my brother that, and, sacred this and sacred that, and, team up north this and team up north that. Hey, don't tell me about it. Go do it. Go do it. That's when we'll know.
Yeah, just to quickly add there, I don't know if I want to put a percent because there's so many factors that we don't know. What's the health of each team? et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with Steve that Ohio State is the more talented team, but when this becomes a bar fight, Michigan is better suited for a bar fight. Michigan is better suited for that small ring, just bare knuckle brawl. And Ohio State has not been able to tap into its inner dog yet or whatever. And if it turns into one of those types of games, then, all bets are off at that point. Michigan is going to sit there and bloody Ohio State's nose. What is Ohio State going to do about it? And that's, in the last 2 years, I mean, there have been mixed results as to what happened. And we can go back and say 5 plays all we want about last year's game, that 5 plays determined it. Well, guess what? You don't get, this isn't like selecting a jury and you can disqualify 5 plays. Those plays happened. Those plays were real. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If Ohio State is able to solve some of its running woes that have developed late in the last 2 seasons, I like Ohio State's chances. But until we see it, I can't believe something that I haven't seen, and I haven't seen it over the course of 2 years. So I don't know.
There is a caller who calls me. This has been about 4 consecutive weeks on the dot every Monday during our Big Ten show. And he pounds the table that Dallin Hayden and Chip Tranum are the 2 best running backs on the roster, and they should be playing ahead of Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. And this is his conviction.
I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
I don't agree with that. If that was the case, they would have beaten Michigan, because those guys are better than the guys who played all year. You got to remember, Henderson and Williams were banged about week 4 on, and in 1 week, out the next. In 1 week, out the next. Hayden, to me, should have played against Michigan. I don't know that they win the game necessarily the way it unfolded, but would have given you a better game and move the sticks and sustain drives instead of punting the ball back to Michigan time and time again. So to me, that was malpractice by the coaches, Alford and Day in particular, that they did not play Dallin Hayden out of some fear that he was going to cost them the Michigan game, rather than try to win the Michigan game. So, that was on the coaches that day, in my opinion, but he was the best they had on that day. Chip Trianum, I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he was put on 20 pounds to play linebacker. And then they said, hey man, grab the running back pads. You got to move back over to running back. And, his body wasn't suited for that. He didn't play running back at Arizona State at 220 pounds. He's listed today, Chip Trianum. Goodness, 233. I could be reading this in 233. Wow. I mean, that's a big boy. It's a big back. You're going to tell me he's going to put it away? He's going to be like a Raymond. He's going to get you 4 and 6 in between the tackles. Pretty good, but
Lord knows they need that 4 and 6 on 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
They don't need him to hit home runs. They just need him to get.
We call them the 3rd down kids. We call them the 3rd down kids. Oh, well.
I'm just licking my chops for this Michael Campbell.
I know you are. I can see that.
I'm waiting for you, Mark. I'm waiting.
I thought so. I figured, hey, Ohio State show, do I bypass this? No. Okay, they are playing this year, so we'll give Michael Campbell his time. And there's no question here. We asked for questions. I could just bypass this, but this is a statement and a typical one from Michael. Here it is. Trouble. Ohio State, no quarterback, no offensive line, new play caller. Not a good recipe for a trip to Notre Dame Stadium with an overhauled offense with 2 starting quarterbacks and a loaded wide receiver room.
First of all, Ohio State is going to pee all over Notre Dame, R. Kelly style. I mean, that I'm not confident about a lot of things in this world, but I'm confident about this. Loaded wide receiver room? What? Notre Dame? Who? No.
Lorenzo Styles Jr.
Lorenzo Styles Jr. I cannot name anybody else in that room.
How cool was that first play of the game last year? He had the 40-yard catch. That was pretty cool for him.
Yeah, Ohio State has the benefit of 3 games to play to break in a new quarterback. And while I agree, playing a game in Bloomington versus playing a game in South Bend are very different experiences. Whether it's McCord or Brown, they will play it on the road. They'll play against 2 lesser teams to try and work out some of the kinks, and then we'll see where things are. Ohio State is a much faster team, is a much more physical team. I really do not see any way all boisterous chest puffing that Michael Campbell may have, where he believes that this is going to be some sort of lookout game for Ohio State. I just don't see it. I like Marcus Freeman. I'm very happy for him that he was able to turn the season around after looking like the first coach that might get fired after his first 6 games as a head coach. They certainly turned some things around. 2 starting QBs, you do bring in the ACC transfer, which is great. I'm not that excited about whatever your second quarterback situation is there, but there is not a chance in hell that I'm looking at the 2 rosters and saying Notre Dame is even within the same area code as Ohio State in terms of talent or coaching.
I was with some friends on Saturday, and first of all, with another group of friends, and I was like, okay, what road game does everybody want to go to? And they're all like, Notre Dame. And I'm like, you understand that to get a hotel in South Bend, it'll probably be $600 for 2 nights, and the tickets are going to be like $400. And, if you want to go to Notre Dame, that's great, but just be prepared, to take out a second mortgage on your house to try and make that happen. It's only the 3rd time ever Ohio State will have played a game at Notre Dame, only the 2nd time in all of our lifetimes. The other one was in 1996. The game that seats 80,000 people now, though. Back then it was just 60,000. They had built it out, but they had not put the seats in yet for the top 30 rows when they built it out yet. They were in the process of working on that when we were there in 1996. So to me, that's going to be a spectacle. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be really neat. But I made a mistake with this other group of friends on Saturday of saying, I think they go out there and win, whatever. I forgot that one of the guys was from Dublin Kaufman and had coached Brady Quinn. And as part of that, had become a Notre Dame dyed-in-the-wool type guy. He's even got a Notre Dame screensaver on his phone, and he goes to a game one every year. He started going when Brady was there, and he caught the fever. And, he's a big believer. I don't know if he's a Catholic guy or not, but he told me all about where to go and what to do and all this stuff. And, I suppose they have their traditions and it's cool, but on paper, they have a great team. I think they're going to be in the top 15, top 10, obviously in the preseason poll, whatever it is. But, so is Ohio State. Yeah. To me, again, it's like the Michigan thing. Ohio State's got the edge in talent. I mean, do they have anybody on the caliber of Marvin Harrison Jr.? No. I mean, not on either, not at any position. So, put that guy in position to catch 7 balls for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns and come see me. I mean, that's kind of so.
When is Isaiah Foskey going to make a play? I mean, I'm still waiting for this. Oh, Isaiah Foskey this, Isaiah Foskey that. Isaiah, go Foskey yourself. I mean, he did nothing. I mean, come on. And I think I get a little bit worked up because
we're going to have a spirited show that week.
Michael Campbell is like a ball peen hammer hitting you in the temple over and over and over and over again. And I just see him on every show. And thank you for your patronage on all the shows, but JFC, come on, man. You're freaking killing me, Smalls.
They even played a Notre Dame style game. They even played a Notre Dame style game in Columbus in the second half, and Ohio State still beat them at their own game. They hammered Mayan Williams at them, and they wore him down and beat him up. And that was a little surprising to me. I thought that was a good sign, actually, at the time. Michael does tell everyone to hit the like button.
That'll be a spirited show that week going into that game. I can already tell that. Who do you have a Notre Dame expert, Mark? Who is it?
Oh, we've got some Notre Dame folks. We brought in Brian Driscoll last year. We've got some other ones standing by. So we shall see who wants to join the fray. It should be a whole lot of fun. Yes. All right. Thought I had a beat on
here's
something else
a
here.
thought. You have to be 95 years old to say that you attended a game that Ohio State lost to Notre Dame. You have to be like 95 years old to say it. And remember that you have a recollection.
We are losing you a little bit, Steve, here and there. That's why we're talking over you, I think. Yeah, the series is becoming, with all these postseason appearances, is being weighted down. You know, we used to talk about, well, these two teams haven't played in forever. Well, they scheduled a couple home and homes here in the last 30 years, plus Ohio State's beating them down in 3 postseason games. So, you know,
two bowl games, I think.
we had we had 2 bowl games. Yeah, so we had the 2 Fiesta Bowl games. Absolutely. You know, it got to the ridiculous level of a few weeks ago. I had like 5 Notre Dame fans arguing with me on Twitter, and their main point in rating Notre Dame as a better program than Ohio State is because Notre Dame only lost to Alabama by 17 in 2020, and Ohio State lost by 28. That was
yes, the transitive property that's well-founded science right there.
And then we lined up all the statistics since the year 2000, and it's just not even arguable. It's, you know, I enjoy a good debate, but when the two entities aren't even in the same stratosphere, like I refuse to debate who's had the better program in the last 20 years because it's not debatable. So we're not going to have a good debate. It's not close. All right. I'm going to keep my eye on the clock. So it looks we're in good shape. I will allow Kevin and Steve to let you know where you can find them while I search for one more comment or question to close us out.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Noon. You can find me at BuckeyeHuddle.com. You can find all of our great podcasts at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And you can also find me out there stomping on leprechauns.
Steve.
I'm at Twitter at Steve Hellwagon. And let's see. Bucknuts.com is our website, part of the 24/7 Sports Net. And I don't know, just up spring football here in the next 11 days through the spring game on April the 15th. And then the long 3-month off season begins, and we'll find plenty of things to talk about, obviously, and recruiting and camps and all that other stuff to come up. But right now, still slogging through spring football. Plenty of stuff going on there.
Some fun Ohio State Notre Dame banter in the chat. Can you imagine? I cannot think of the last time Ohio State lost a game like the 2 that Notre Dame lost last season. That Stanford team was atrocious. And of course, Marshall's a really good group of 5 team, but they're still a top 75 or 80 team in the country, maybe somewhere in that range. All right, Kevin, appreciate you being here. I think we've got a few delay issues here, but Kevin, thanks so much again. Kevin's on BuckeyeHuddle.com and his Big Me podcast. Steve at Bucknuts 247 Sports, and we appreciate Steve posting these. And one more time, I'm going to remind everyone, going forward, you're going to see these shows time-stamped, so you're not going to see edited, repurposed content from these shows, but we are time-stamping everything. So please make this your destination. Please watch as we see that we've got the most people on here at the end of the show. Please watch what you missed. And again, you can cut to your favorite part of the show if you don't want to watch all of it. All right, we'll make it back here sometime next week. Please turn on those notifications to know when we will be live next week with our Ohio State live show. See you next time.